Hi, and welcome to the Money Tips No One Told You podcast, presented by First Pioneers Federal Credit Union. Here at First Pioneers, we're passionate about helping not only our members, but our community become financially successful. That success often starts with basic knowledge, things like knowing how different account types work, to understanding terminology, or even tips that make your life easier. The more you know, the more success you will have as you handle your money and your finances. Let's get started. Hi, I'm your host Heather with First Pioneers Federal Credit Union, and today we're talking about budgets. And I know we've actually talked about budgets before, but we've never talked about what happens if they don't quite go the way you thought they would, or maybe they need a little help. Maybe you need to fix your, let's call them challenges. I don't actually like to use the word fail because I think a challenge means we can fix it, and we can absolutely fix a budget that's got a few issues. So what reasons might cause your budget to go off track? Well, I've actually got a few tips for you to consider with that. Firstly, many people just simply lose motivation. They try their budget for a couple months and maybe they don't see some great earth-shattering result, or they just get tired. I mean, it does take work and a bit of extra effort to really handle your budget correctly. Not only do you need to create the budget, you also need to track it and follow it, which we're going to talk about the tracking part a little bit more in just a minute. But especially in the world that we live in today of technology and instant gratification, it's easy to get bored or even just get tired of limiting yourself and your spending. It's kind of like a diet. Sometimes you just need a cheat day on your diet, or a way to reward yourself and not make it feel like you're just penalizing yourself all the time. And it can really be the same way with your budget. I recommend if you find yourself becoming bored, look for ways to make it more interesting. A great fix for this kind of challenge is to create a goal. Maybe there's a big ticket item that you could save up for, something that really gives you fulfillment. It could be a car, it could be a home, or it could be something not quite so big, something smaller but still a large ticket, like a computer or even a new game system. But look for ways to sort of bring excitement back into your budget, and I'm sure it'll help you feel more motivated to keep it going. Next challenge for a lot of people is you're busy. I mean, we're all busy, it seems, right? We've got work, we've got families, outside activities. There just never seems to be enough hours in the day to get everything done. And when we're busy, well, we tend to forget things or let things kind of take a back seat. Sometimes the things we forget is to pay our bills on time, which can actually lead to costing us more, late fees and things like that. So your fix here is to automate as many payments as you can. Often you can sign up for a bill pay program at your credit union or your bank. You can also set up auto drafts or payments with the account holder. I do this in particular with my car note, and it just helps you make sure that all your bills are paid on time. There are even some apps that will help you track your spending and send you alerts when those bills are due. There's one called Mint, M-I-N-T. That's a great one to look into. But we recommend look around, see what's available, and see what works for you and your needs. Third on my list is not setting a realistic budget. And this can actually go a couple of different ways. Either you're super excited and you want to do a great job at getting your finances under control, so you start cutting expenses, but you kind of cut them to a point that it becomes a dire situation. You don't allow yourself any new clothes or any money to eat out ever. And then the other side of that is not including all of your expenses. You don't really account for all that you spend. Let's say you eat out for lunch 5 days a week and it's about $15 a time, but you really only take out, say, $10 a day out of your budget. Well, that's going to leave you short. The point is, you can't operate on a budget this way. And if you do, you're just going to end up disappointed as you start to see the reality of your situation set in. So I have a few suggestions to fix that. Track your budget realistically for, say, 2 or 3 months so you can get a real look at what's happening. Then look at your budget and see where you can cut some expenses. But don't make drastic cuts. Things like cutting a whole category out of your budget is probably not something you want to do. Maybe start with cutting 10% in that category, or really anywhere you're planning on making cuts. Now, if you have a category that's particularly frivolous, you may go above 10%, but I still wouldn't cut the whole category out in the beginning. Maybe start with not spending that budgeted money for a month or so and see how it goes. See if going without that category really works. If you choose to cut it later, then you'll know it's a realistic option. And in the meantime, not spending that money, create a little buffer in your budget during that time. Also, make sure fun is part of your budget. Just like the cheat day on your diet, you have to allow yourself some fun and to just live and enjoy your life. And that's not to say you can't look for less expensive things to do or ways to make your fun a little more cost effective, but it still needs to be in there. So make sure that fun is part of your realistic budget. Number 4 is your bills are simply too high. As much as you cut your day-to-day expenses, it may not even be that helpful if your fixed bills are that high. And if those bills make up the larger part of your overall expenses, it may leave you no choice but to cut back in other categories. And this can be a little trickier than just cutting back on how often you eat out or something like that. You have to start by evaluating what bills are high. Is it student loans? Is it your mortgage? Maybe it's credit cards, because those can kill a budget really quickly. You may need to evaluate those sort of one by one and see if there's anywhere you can help yourself. You can look into options to refinance your student loans. You can actually do the same with a mortgage or a car loan. Look at, are you living beyond your means? And by that, do you have bedrooms or space you simply don't need, or a car that's too big for your needs? Downsizing may be a good option. For credit cards, they can seem overwhelming, but they can be overcome. You have to create a plan to pay down the balances, and most importantly, stop using them and running up those balances. Now let's move on to number 5, and that is just simply you forget things in your budget. You wrote down your bills, but you didn't budget for other expenses. This is things like car maintenance that you only do every 6 months, or back to school expenses like supplies and uniforms. So all of a sudden they're here, but they aren't part of your fixed bills, so you didn't count those. Even things like higher electric bills during the summer heat, all that needs to be considered, and your budget needs to be adjusted for those. There's also the auto payments for things like memberships that people tend to forget. Maybe you signed up for an online streaming service, but you never really watch it, so you kind of forget about it, but that $5.99 charge still comes out of your account every month. There's even credit card spending to consider. If you're used to charging $250 a month in food on your credit card, that really needs to be counted as an expense and therefore budgeted. Now is the time to look at all your expenses and write everything down. I find something that helps me is to flip through a calendar as I make my budget. And as I look at each month, I can see what expenses I'm going to need for that month. I have one in particular that's really heavy for birthdays for the family. So I need a little extra that month for presents. And one way to handle that is I can look at the amount that I normally spend on those presents and then divide it by 12. Whatever amount I get, I hold that to the side each month all year long until I need it. Another option is you can even open a special savings account just for those kinds of expenses if you want. Put that money in there and then it's ready for you when you need it. The key is don't forget about them. Make sure they're part of your budget. And as for those memberships, cancel whatever you're not using. There is no need to waste that money that you could be using for something else, or you could be saving it. Next on our list is emergencies. Emergencies happen, y'all, and it can derail a budget so quickly. I mean, it's not something you can really plan for, and you certainly can't predict what it might be. You can, however, prepare yourself for it. You do that by saving in an emergency fund. It's actually one of the most important things you can have in your budget. You put money aside that can help pay for those unexpected events. It could be an illness, it could be home repair, car repair, really any number of things. I would also consider looking at your insurance deductible for your home and your car, and maybe create a goal to have enough to cover that deductible in your savings account. We all hope that these things won't happen, but it's best to be prepared just in case. Number 7 is not tracking and adjusting your budget. So many people take the time to create a budget, but then they don't track their spending to put their hard work to the test. And tracking is a really important part of budgeting success. It holds you accountable so that you stick to those numbers. It also lets you see how you're really spending your money. You may discover that you're spending more or less in specific categories than what you budgeted. In this case, those categories should be adjusted. This can help you see a lot more success in your spending. Now, if you discover areas that you're spending less than you thought, you could put that excess to another category that needs it. This could also help you pay off debt faster, or better yet, save more. Remember that emergency fund we just talked about? Maybe that's a little extra you could put in there. This is also important to do as your life changes. A job loss or promotion could change your income. What if you move or get married or expand your family? All those things will change your income and your expenses. So be sure that you revisit your budget from time to time. Just make sure it's still working for you and your situation. Last on our list is everyone not being on board, which could also lead to maybe giving in to some temptation. If you share a budget with someone else, like a spouse, and they're not in agreement with your proposed budget, it could really create some challenges for your success. And if that person is not on the same page with you, you may see them indulging in things that are outside your budget. Things like clothes or fine dining, or even bigger ticket items like cars. A good way to fix this particular challenge is by looking for common goals. Like we discussed earlier with your motivation, find something that you're both motivated to save for or work towards. That could be the house we talked about, or even a dream vacation, or your child's education. That may provide that necessary motivation to get them on board and help you both be more aware of not indulging outside of your budget. Most of the ideas we've shared are pretty straightforward, and they will require a little extra effort to make them happen, but I think they'll be worth it in your budgeting success. You could also consider an accountability partner. That could be helpful to keep you on track. Your significant other may be a great option for that, or even a good friend or a family member may be able to help. Before we go today, I have a couple bonus tips for you. When you're creating your budget or tracking it, make sure you use a system that works for you. What I mean by that is if you're tech savvy, by all means, find an app that can help you. But if tech is not really your thing, an Excel spreadsheet or a simple pen and paper is fine to use to do this. The truth is, you're more likely to continue tracking and budgeting if you use a system that suits you and your needs. And that hopefully will lead to more success for you. My second bonus today is don't beat yourself up if things don't go perfectly. As a perfectionist in recovery, I can attest to this. Your first draft of your budget will most likely not be your last. It takes some time to work on it and tweak it to make it what you need and what works best for you. So give yourself a break. You'll get where you need to be. Give yourself some grace and some time, and you're going to get there. And of course, as always, if you need help sorting all this out, here at First Pioneers, we're always here to help. I mean, sometimes just sitting with someone can help. Another pair of eyes to offer suggestions can really get you moving in the right direction. So feel free to reach out whenever you need it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Employee Spotlight segment of our podcast. Here at First Pioneers, we are a big family, and we want you guys to get to know ours. And today we have Shelly joining us. Hi, Shelly.
Hi.
So why don't you start by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Shelly. I am a loan officer at the New Iberia branch. We've been here since the beginning of 2019. I'm actually currently training to become the branch manager of this branch. So that'll take place here within the next 6 weeks or so.
That is so awesome. Congratulations. We're excited.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Yes. Okay. Well, why don't we start with your questions?
Okay.
So first, who inspires you?
Probably, I would say my mom inspires me. That's such a common answer, I guess. But I lost my mom unexpectedly to pancreatic cancer in 2020. But she was my best friend. She's still my best friend. And she worked hard her entire life. She loved hard. She inspired me to just try my best and try to reach my goals and be there for my family. And I find myself still trying to do that and live up to her example every single day.
That is so wonderful. That bond with your mom is a very special thing.
Absolutely.
I know. That's awesome. Okay, so second question. What is the last book you read?
I am actually currently reading a book, not so much for pleasure, but for my career path, the Louisiana Notarial Law and Practice, as I am gearing up to take the notary exam in October. Not an easy read, not for enjoyment, as I mentioned. A lot of information. And this is my first time going through it, and I'm sure I'll have more opportunities to read through that book. But that's currently what I'm reading.
That's really neat, though. That's a great thing to add to your skill set, which is already vast. So that's
thank you. Yeah, we recently lost our notary here at the branch.
That's true.
So I'm trying to fill that void and just take advantage of the opportunities that would bring to have my notary license.
That's great. Good for you. Okay, so October, we need to remember that so we can send you all the positive vibes for when you take that test.
Thanks.
Okay, and then lastly, name something on your bucket list.
Actually, I completed something on my bucket list.
Ooh.
A couple years ago, we have a daughter who is serving in the Air Force in Virginia, and we went to visit her, and I ziplined over over one of the rainforest type areas in Virginia, Virginia Beach area, actually. Zipline with my daughter, my husband, and our 9-year-old son at the time. It was amazing.
Oh, how fun and
It was.
terrifying, but
And
fun.
terrifying, absolutely. My son jumped on there with no fear. He was the first one and he just took off. And I said, you know what, if he can do it, I got this. It was one of the most incredible experiences. That was definitely on my bucket list beforehand, but I'm so thankful that I got a chance to do it.
Oh, I'm so glad for you. How fun. And to do it as a family, how neat
Absolutely.
is that? Oh,
Yes.
I love it. Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I've learned so much about you. I hope
Oh,
everyone else
thanks,
has.
Heather. Thanks for the
Awesome.
chance.
Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You've just watched our YouTube version of our Money Tips No One Told You podcast. There is also a blog version on our website at firstpioneers.com. You can always find us at any of our branches in Lafayette or in New Iberia, Louisiana, on our website or on any of our socials. We're here to help you in any way that we can, and we really appreciate you watching. See you next time.